So one of the weird ways of thinking that I see amongst the online fan base is the reluctance to sell players unless they are just clearly not good enough. If you're in a position where you're only selling players who aren't at the level you need and you don't want them in the squad next season, you're in a bad position. You need to be selling players who you'd be happy to keep, but you're also ready to sell in order to reinvest in other players that improves the starting 11 and the squad as a whole. And whilst working on my next Who Manchester United Should Sign video, which hopefully should be out soon, I was looking at who United could potentially sell next summer in order to raise funds to go out and bring in your top targets to improve the starting 11. Now obviously, depending on performances next season, the situation of individual players could change. However, at the moment, the players that I would put on this list that I would be ready to sell next summer would be Andre Onana and Dalot if they don't go this summer, Mazraoui, Ugarte, Martinez, Dorgu or Alvaro Fernandez if we did sign him this summer, Oyedele as well if he was re-signed this summer, and also Xerxes and Mount. Now obviously I'm not saying we just sell all of these players, but once I explain it I think you'll understand what I mean. But before I do break down the logic behind this, if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to dragonjersey.com. They've sent me over 2 of their retro jerseys, this Manchester United 06-07 long sleeved home shirt with Ronaldo 7 on the back, as well as this 95-96 PSG Anelka shirt. They've also got other retro and current season jerseys available, and depending on where you live you can get 7 to 12 day delivery time, and also a 30-day money-back guarantee. But if you do want to check out any of the details, their WhatsApp and emails are on the site. You can also use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount for a limited time, 10%, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. So I'll start off with Dorgu and Alvaro Fernandez, which may sound like a weird one because Dorgu was only signed in January, and Alvaro Fernandez in this scenario would have only been signed in the summer. But why am I already talking about selling them? Well, the thing is, if you look at the wing-back roles on both flanks, I think ideally in the squad, Amorim needs one option that is more of a winger, with high-level 1v1 dribbling ability, able to either go down the outside or come on the inside, alongside being a left footer on the right, or vice versa on the left. But he also needs an offensive option to provide pace on the overlap, who is more of a natural fullback, providing a more reliable defensive option. I think on the right side, even now we look pretty good. Ahmad can be used as the right wing back in the majority of games because I genuinely believe he is a perfect player to play there in the short to mid term. Maybe further down the line when his output centrally and in the final third becomes more consistent, you can then move him into the forward line. But for now, I think he has all the attributes needed to rival Dumfries and Hakimi as the best wing-back in world football as early as next season. But alongside Ahmad, you've also got Dalot, a right footer who offers greater defensive awareness and positioning inside the defensive third compared with Ahmad. He's also a better 1v1 defender, and he still provides you with ball progression from deep and decent offensive output on the overlap in the final third as well. However, this summer you could upgrade upon Dalot and use the money to bring in someone like Jeremy Frimpong for his £33 million release clause. And whilst defensively Frimpong definitely isn't as good as Dalot, you can use Mazraoui there in big games and when defending a lead if needed. But compared with Dalot, Frimpong not only provides greater pace and output in the final third, but this would also allow United to use Ahmad higher up in the front three, without significantly reducing the offensive threat at right wing back. And so you can see the logic with selling Dalot this summer. Now on the left side we have Dorgu, Amas and Leon, but I don't think any of those three are ready to be United's starting left wing back week in week out next season. And so you could bring in someone like Teo for between 25 to 30 million pounds, if he doesn't go to Real Madrid that is, as he is in the last year of his contract, and then if someone signs Alvaro Fernandez for between 25 to 35 million, you will get half of that transfer fee. But I think it's probably better to just save the money for a premium central midfielder, a centre forward and a right interior forward alongside Cunha, and then instead just bring back Alvaro Fernandez for 8.5 million and have him as a starting left wing back, with Dorgu also getting significant minutes as his competition, and then you can send Harry Amas and Diego Leon out on loan. I have written up a full plan for my preferred Manchester United transfer window for this summer and next summer in 2026. There may be a few changes as I am in the process of making the video, but if you do just want to see the plan right now, I've posted it on my Patreon. You can get a 7-day free trial just to see it. And if you message me on Patreon any questions, I'll try to do a quick Patreon podcast to answer them. I'll leave it linked in all the usual places. So come next season, you compare and judge Alvaro and Dorgu's performances, and then most likely, because I think both are a bit too stylistically similar, closer to being fullbacks than wingers, and ideally I would like a left wing back with winger-like output in the final third, you can keep one of them and sell the other. If they both have fairly good seasons next year, even if it's nothing massively above their current ability, you could probably still sell either for between 25 to 35 million pounds. And to be honest, I think you'd make more money on Alvaro Fernandez simply by re-signing him and then selling him yourself, rather than just taking 50% of what Benfica get for him. And Dorgu as well we signed for £25 million up front, and so by the summer of 2026 we would have paid off some of his fee. And so if we were to sell him, we should still be able to record a not insignificant profit on the books. You could then take the money from selling one of those two and go out and sign a premium option at left wing back. Now at the moment I don't have a clear idea of who that would be for this summer, which is part of the reason why I'd just bring back Alvaro Fernandez, but in terms of style, you'd probably want someone like Savinho Matoma Doku, a hard-working winger who's played in a defensive system where they require a high level of positional understanding to then mould them into a wing-back role, just as Amorim has done with Ahmad. Now at right-sided centre-back, because Mazraoui would be 28 next summer, it would be a good time to sell just from his age profile. And to be fair, even though I'd probably have Mazraoui as a starting right-sided centre-back going into next season, given the money we paid for them, you'd probably expect one of, if not both of De Ligt and Euro to be able to overtake Mazraoui in the pecking order. Central centre-back, I've said before, I'd go out and sign Balerdi this summer, because I think come next summer he's either gone somewhere else or is going to cost upwards of £50 million. And I also think that unless you sign a centre-back with a high level of technical ability and press resistance to push up to the edge of the box in build-up, we are still going to struggle with any of our current centre-back options in that area. And with the build-up phase being a crucial part of Amorim's possession system, I think the effect on a team's performance next season would be massive, just from that one transfer. But also next season you'd have Maguire as a backup option, with Euro and De Ligt also probably capable of playing there as well. And so when you look at the right-sided centre-back spot in United's squad, that's probably the one area where you could probably afford to cash in on in the summer of 2026. But I would also say that on the left as well. Lisandro Martinez's long-term injury is a big inconvenience, because I think going into next season with Lisandro Martinez, Balerdi and one of De Ligt and Euro is a very good back three, particularly from a ball-playing perspective. But even if he was fit, I think eventually you do have to move Martinez on and potentially upgrade, which hopefully if he does make a full recovery by the start of 2026, you can look to do that summer. And like Mazraoui, Martinez will be 28 by the time next summer comes around. He has a contract until 2027, but there is a joint option of a further year. He should agree to extend this, but even then he'd only have 2 years left on his contract, which means United are either going to have to sell him or give him a new contract, because if you do neither, come the summer of 2027 he'll be 29 with only 1 year left on his contract, significantly reducing the fee that we could get for him. Now obviously if we get to March next season and Mazraoui is clearly our best option at right-sided centre-back, you would keep him. But in that scenario, if you did bring in a central centre-back like Balerdi this summer, who can also play on either side, as well as Martinez returning on the left, and either getting a new contract or being sold and upgraded, you surely then have to sell De Ligt, unless you keep him as a backup central centre-back and someone who could fill in across the back line. But considering he's still only 25 and he is on £10 million a season, you'd probably just rather sell him and bring in someone cheaper on a lower salary to play that role in the squad. Now with Martinez, even if he does come back to where he was before he got injured, I think you still have to make a decision. He's had 2 pretty bad long-term injuries, and whilst I don't think this makes him injury prone as such, you do have to consider it. And when you compare him to the likes of Bastoni or Schottlerbeck, they are clear upgrades as left-sided centre-backs in a back three, and we could use the Martinez and or Mazraoui money to fund that sort of move. And I think the same goes for Ugarte. Ugarte is not the ideal central midfielder for Amorim's system. He wasn't at Sporting, hence why Amorim was using a different kind of central midfielder in Morita towards the end of his tenure. For next season, I think Ugarte stays. He's a very good asset to have, but even if he was starting alongside a premium central midfielder like an Angelo Stiller, Edison, or my choice Adam Walton, I think next summer you have to be looking to upgrade. You could sell Oyedele for a decent enough profit instead, but even if he was to be re-signed in the summer and do well in the Premier League next season, I don't think you'll get the kind of fee for him that you'd probably get with Ugarte. And even if you could, I think by that point, Oyedele's more complete skill set in possession would mean that you'd probably rather keep him as a backup rather than Ugarte. I mean, PSG sold Ugarte a season after he joined for less than what they paid the summer before, likely just about breaking even on the books for that transfer, but that allowed them to go and get João Neves, and I don't think that anyone is going to make the claim that Ugarte alongside Ruiz and Vitinha is anywhere near as good as with João Neves in there. Do the same with Ederson or ideally Baleba. Baleba would be hugely expensive, likely 80 to 85 million, and whilst there may be better options on the market come next summer, I think right now a Walton Baleba double pivot would be ideal for the start of the 26-27 season. But realistically, we could only afford Baleba if we were to cash in on Ugarte for I'd say around £35 million next summer, and you may also have to sell Maxi Oyedele because of how much Baleba would cost. And the same goes for other players who are in the squad who aren't likely to be consistent starters in a title challenging side, such as Joshua Zirkzee and Mason Mount. I wouldn't put Mainu in that list just yet because of his potential, and I do eventually think he'll find a role that suits him. Although of course I wouldn't fully rule out selling Mainu depending on the price, his performance next season, the other players available, as well as the overall situation. Mason Mount, I think we've got to get rid at the first opportunity we can get our money back. By next summer we should only have about £22 million left to pay on his fee, which even with his £13 million a season salary could allow us to move him on without making a loss on the books. Zirkzee I think you probably keep as long as he continues a steady development, because I actually do like his non-starting role in the squad. Ideally I think you want a starting centre forward like Gyökeres alongside Cunha, maybe Bruno Fernandes if he stays, or even someone like Mbumo or Rodrigo, and then have Zirkzee as an alternative option either off the bench or from game to game, either as an interior forward behind Gyökeres, or maybe even coming in for Gyökeres to play more of a false nine facilitating role as a centre forward in the front three. However, if Zirkzee's performance level stays around what it was this season, or even slightly improves, then you could probably sell him for between £35 to £45 million next summer, as depending on what other forwards are available on the market at the time, like with the other players, you may look to move Zirkzee on and reinvest in an upgrade. I guess you could also sign someone like Jonathan David this summer for what officially would be on a free, but factoring in his signing on fee as well as the agent fees, it's likely to be around 15 to 20 million pounds, and then maybe sell him on next summer after a decent season for 30 to 35 million pounds plus. Same with Liam Delap as well potentially, and any other players we sign for pretty cheaply this summer and can sell for profit next summer. And so contrary to the fan channel mentality of just always backing the players, you have to look at the finances as well as the long-term strategy, identifying when it's best to sell players, taking into account their age, contract status, salary, transfer fee, as well as their current and potential status in the squad. So let me know if you agree with this long-term planning of when to sell players, and if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to dragonjersey.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. Also, if you want to read any of my articles, you can get a 7-day free trial, or you can sign up to my in-game Instagram group chat, so I'll leave that linked on the end screen now as well.